I am live and I am trying to figure out this lighting. Oh my goodness, I can't believe the way the sun is coming in. But isn't it beautiful? Look at how it's shining through the windows, through the doors. Ah, I don't know. I'm going to see if I can block it as much as possible. Thank you all so much for joining us for the Good Fight. We are live right here every single Tuesday night from 7 to 8 o'clock, having a conversation at the intersection of faith and social justice, asking ourselves, how does our faith show up when we engage and interact human to human? How do we live out our faith in a way that allows other people to be liberated? How does our faith liberate other people? And how do we live a faith of liberation? And so that's what we're talking about when we gather in this space. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for those of you who join live. I'm grateful for those of you who join, you watch on today is Tuesday. You watch on Wednesday mornings. There are some of you who watch on Thursday evenings. There are some of you who wait until the weekend to watch. And I am just thrilled. I'm tickled to know that this is important enough for you to take out the time in your normal rhythm of life to see what it is we're talking about on The Good Fight. I want to remind you that The Good Fight is made possible by Just Talk Consulting. Just Talk Consulting is my own consulting firm where we firmly believe that every change that needs to be affected in order for us to realize a world that is more just, more equitable, more inclusive, where we learn to live and love differently, it happens through conversation. So we just talk. So we just have conversation, but it is a just talk. It's a talk about justice. And that is what we do. We gather people together to have these conversations, and this conversation is rooted and grounded in faith, so that we can examine ourselves and make sure that what we say matches what we do. So again, I am grateful for you being here. If this is your first time, I don't know. I wish that you would reach out to me and tell me, like, how did you find out about The Good Fight? Like, who told you? Like, I'm just interested in that. And I'm okay not knowing. I am not one of those ones who goes onto the website to see who was watching me, to see how many people, to see who didn't watch. I don't do that. But if you're willing to just share, to shoot me a text, 228-236-7440, or hit me up in my DMs on social, on Messenger, Facebook Messenger, like however you want to get the information to me. I'd just be interested to know. But if this is your first time being with us here on The Good Fight, I want you to know that there are ways that you can engage with us. One of the ways that you can engage is to find yourself reflected in what is happening in this space. We talk a lot about representation matters. It is important that you know that you can find yourself in whatever sacred text you hold dear to your heart. So it doesn't have to be the Bible. It can be the Quran. It can be the Torah. Whatever it is that you feel like helps guide you in your walk of faith, then you should be able to find yourself reflected in that. And even if you're not a person of faith, like you don't ascribe to any kind of formal religion, but you consider yourself spiritual, it is important that you find yourself, that you see yourself in the spirit that you hold sacred. And so finding yourself, like, do I think the same way? Have I had this experience? Do I recognize this description as something that I can apply to my life or to my personality? Those are the questions that you can ask to find yourself reflected in a mirror as we have this conversation. Another way that you can engage is to look through a window. So somebody else's story is centered in this space, and you have the privilege and the honor. You are gifted with an opportunity to just receive the story. Like, you don't have to judge it. You're not asked to judge it, interrogate it, or make any decisions about it, or have any responsibility around it. Just receive it as the gift that it is, that you are listening actively and consciously to someone else, and getting to know their lived experience. Another way that you can engage is to walk through a door, so that this conversation does not have to stop at 8 o'clock when I end the broadcast, but the conversation continues in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, in your spirit, in your body, so that as you go about your day tomorrow, something will cause you to remember something that was said, or as you prepare for bed, or as you are sleeping, or if you wake up in the middle of the night, you begin to research something based on what was said in this space. You want to find a book, you want to read an article, you want to send me a TikTok, whatever it is that keeps you going on the subject, on the topic of concern, then that's what we consider walking through a door. And that is one of the ways that you can engage. You can also comment right here in this space, or if you don't want to comment live because you're not watching it live, or because you'd rather talk to me one-to-one, I was about to say face-to-face, one-on-one, then you can just simply send me a message, like I said, via Facebook or text message. Again, my number is 228-236-7440. I've got to remember to put that in the description so that you will have it. But there are ways that we can continue to be connected beyond this moment. So those are the ways that you can engage with the good fight. However you choose to engage, whosoever. I was trying to think of what my ancestors would say. Whosoever wants to have the conversation, I'm here for it. Always, always, always. So believe it or not, I am still with this series about inhumanity in the Bible. And today, when I was typing up the description for this particular conversation, I wrote that we have to, what I really realized, and I don't think I've said it before until tonight, I know I haven't, is that the critical question is, why is this particular story that we're talking about inhumane? Why do we classify it as inhumane? What difference does it make that we find inhumanity in the Bible? What is it that we are charged to do as a result of this inhumanity in the Bible? How do we want to respond to it? And what does it say about us, our lack of response to it? So those are the critical questions that should help guide us through the conversation, so that we aren't just talking, right? Again, just talk is about talking about justice in a way that moves us to action, so that we are putting our bodies on the line so that we can affect change in whatever context we find ourselves. So whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's where we pray, or whether it's where we play, wherever we find ourselves, how do we allow this faithfulness that we profess to manifest in a way that frees other people, that embraces other people, that allows us to live in the spirit of Sawubona? And so we usually start each one of our sessions with that greeting, Sawubona. It is a Zulu tribal greeting with which on its face means hello. Or for those of you who are yogis, is it yogis? Namaste. And so it's a hello, it's a greeting. But it's so much deeper than that when we begin to delve into what it means to live into the spirit of Sawubona. It recognizes the oneness. It recognizes our connection. It recognizes our bond. And it reminds us that no matter what we do or say, we are inextricably bound. You cannot detach yourself. You cannot separate yourself from me. Even if you choose not to talk to me, even if you decide to hate me, even if you make decisions that don't include me, we are still bound together, human to human, and there's nothing that you can do about that. But if you choose to embrace that, then what you are saying is, Denise, I see all of you. I see you and your ancestors that have worked to bring you to this space. I see all of y'all, and I welcome you. I invite you. I honor you. I celebrate you. I love you in this space. And I say, yay, Bo Sawubona. Yes to the Sawubona, because it's an invitation. Yes, I receive your love, your embrace, your celebration, your honor, your respect for me, and I offer the same to you. So how do we coexist? How do we live in a way where our thoughts and feelings and actions don't have to agree? We don't have to agree, but there's room in them for us to have conversations that allow us both to be liberated with whatever our convictions are. And so that's what the conversation becomes, and that's what we're talking about on tonight. And so, talking about we're on part 5. This is part 5 of finding inhumanity in the Bible. We're looking at 1 Samuel chapter 18. 1 Samuel chapter 18. I really don't have a story about how I got to this place. Usually I say, hey, let me tell you how I got here, right? But today I don't. I actually simply I was Googling uh, not I don't know what I was Googling, but when I did Google, as I was researching, a site came up that talked about weird moments in the Bible. And so I thought to myself, they're calling it weird, I'll probably call it inhumane. And so I began to read the weird moments they were talking about. And sure enough, I found one of the stories not to be weird at all, but to be inhumane. And so I chose it for our conversation on tonight. So there was nothing that was happening on TV or nothing that was happening in my own personal life that brought me to this story. I just chose it from a list as I was doing research to bring us to this space. And so this story happens in 1 Samuel chapter 18. On the flyer, I said that we would be reading verses 18 through 30, but that's not true. We're actually going to focus on 17 through 27 as our pericope. Again, pericope, Pericope, being that part of the Bible, that part of any text, whether you call it the Bible, whether you call it a book, whether you call it a reference, whether you call it a source, whether you call it sacred, whether you call it a text, whatever it is, if you pull from it, if you extract a part of it and you offer it up for consideration, then that is your pericope. So for our pericope, the part that I want us to focus on, it's found in verses 17 through 27 in 1 Samuel chapter 18. But this chapter, 1 Samuel chapter 18, I wonder how many of you have ever heard it preached at church. I wonder because it is absolutely positively in my mind, no doubt about it. It is a declaration of one man's love for another man in a way that can absolutely be interpreted as romantic. You can interpret it however you want to, but one of the ways that it can be interpreted is romantic. And so I think about that when we have, especially in the climate, the political climate that we're living in today, where there is this huge pushback against people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, intersex, asexual, agender, two-spirited, pansexual, queer, intersex. Did I say intersex? We have this huge pushback. And then some people even collapse. Some people even I was going to say converge, but that's not the word that I'm looking for. But there's a confluence of identity. So people who are drag queens, because in the political climate, drag queens are definitely a target. So many people assume that drag queens are people who are transgender, and that's not the same thing. Those are two totally different identities. And so we have this pushback in the political climate against this community of people who are simply living. Like, I'm living who I am. Like, I'm not trying to make a political statement. I'm not trying to get you to buy a certain kind of beer. I'm just living. And my existence threatens you so much that you are doing everything that you can to silence me, to erase me, and kill me on many different levels. And one of which is physical. There are so many Black trans women who are killed on a regular basis because of who they are, that it cannot be ignored. We must not ignore it. And so when you think about that, this particular passage, this particular chapter, 1 Samuel chapter 18, we're going to focus on verses 17 through 27. But the chapter itself at the beginning is a glimpse into this relationship between Jonathan and David that continues for years, and where we realize that this man, Jonathan, loves this man, David. Later on, you will hear him say he loves David. The love that he has for David is more than the love that he has for a woman. You hear the beginning of this particular chapter where Jonathan, it's almost like he meets David for the first time, and it's love at first sight. How many of you believe in love at first sight? I don't believe in that. I don't believe in love at first sight because I don't believe that love is strictly an emotion. I don't believe that I see somebody, and regardless of what happens in my body, I might feel butterflies, I might feel a thumping between my legs, I might get this smile on my face, I might get this sexy little look on my face. Like something happens in my body to let me know that I am attracted to this person. But for me, that is not the definition of love. And so when I think about love, I believe that love is a choice. I don't think it's something that overtakes you and you have no control over it. It's a song by Tweet. She says, "Oops, there go my skirt up over my head." Oh my, like she has no control over whether or not she gets undressed. Like she has no control over whether or not someone else is able to have access to her body. We're not talking about people who are victimized. We're not talking about people who are targeted for rape or sexual assault. I'm talking about people who present themselves to another person because I want to give my body over to you. I want to receive the gift of your body given to me and let us enjoy ourselves together. And so this in this kind of context, you say, I had no idea, like I just couldn't help myself. No, these are choices that we are making all along the way. I remember one of the things that my mom taught me when I was growing up. She was very concerned about me having a child out of wedlock, not because I was promiscuous, not because I was giving her any signals that I was engaging in premarital sex, but she just believed that there was a time based on the biology where your hormones begin to raise, and you begin as a child, you are coming into terms with that. Puberty hits and you don't really know what's going on and you don't know what to do, and we don't have enough effective education at school, we don't have enough effective education at home, and then parents are still afraid to talk about this or hesitant to talk about this, so children are learning on their own. And so she knew that this time was coming in my life, and so she wanted to have conversations with me about how I was conducting myself. And she would say to me, if you are going to be, well, this was beyond puberty because I was like in college, if you are going to go out on a date, before you go out on the date, you need to decide how far this young man is willing to go. Because at the time, I was only dating men and never considered dating anyone other than a man. So I grew up absolutely heterosexual. And so everything was about men and women. And so as a woman, it is your responsibility to know how far you will let this man go. You need to know that before you leave, so that when you are in a situation, your mind is still governing the circumstance, the situation. It's not your emotions that take over. You already know. You can kiss me on my lips, but that's it. You cannot reach underneath my shirt. You cannot grab me between my legs. You cannot take my clothes off. You cannot lie. We are not going to lie down. Like, no, the only thing that you're going to be able to do is kiss me on my lips. And so that actually proved effective for me. I still practice that to this day. I want to make sure I'm clear on what I want to happen before I walk out of the door. And so these are choices that I am making. This is not me falling prey to a bodily function, a normal bodily reaction. It's normal to feel these things within our bodies, but I don't fall prey to it. I am the one that's guiding it and controlling it. And so when we have this conversation at the beginning of 1 Samuel chapter 18, I feel like Jonathan is not like me at all, but he absolutely positively falls in love at first sight. Oh, there go Miss Narita. Hey, Miss Narita. Says she forgot to say hello. Glad that you are here. T is here, but y'all look. I've decided that I'm not gonna press her to come. I'm not gonna remind her to come. If she comes, she comes. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I don't even know if she remembers what day it is. I don't know if she's keeping up with the time. Sometimes she's asleep. We're trying to find our rhythm, and I'm trying to give her as much freedom as she can possibly have, because that's what I want, right? Like, I want to be liberated. So I want to liberate her as well. So maybe she'll come in tonight. We'll see. But so Jonathan, at the very beginning of chapter 18, Saul sees David. So David is one of Saul's men, right? And so Saul is the king. And as the king, David has to report to Saul, look who I see. Look who I was just talking about you. Miss Oh, you got the, they can't see you yet. What y'all gonna do with her, huh? What y'all gonna do with her? Hey, T.
Hey. Hey, hey.
Saul sees, so Jonathan is Saul's son. David reports to Jonathan as a soldier, as one of the king's men. And so David is here in this text, in this story, and he's having a conversation with Saul. And after he has the conversation with Saul, then you see Jonathan react. Jonathan reacts to David in a way where he's like, oh my goodness. He takes off his clothes, he gives him his weapons, he declares right then and there that they are going to be connected forever and ever and always. And that's the moment where I believe that Jonathan falls in love with David. And this story, I mean, they become friends in ways that we become lovers, right? They make vows to each other. They vow to take care of each other, to take care of each other's families, to take care of each other's children. Like, it's a for real relationship that happens between the two of them. And I have never in the history of, now I grew up in the church. I was born into the Baptist faith. I grew up and I was Baptist all the way through college. And then I started just trying to find my way. And I ended up in the Methodist church. After being AME Zion, after being AME, I found myself in the United Methodist Church. And I've never heard anybody preach about especially not a Black man, preach about this relationship between David and Jonathan as one that is romantic and possibly sexual. Have never done that. But this is the verse, this is the chapter that we're in for our time tonight to talk about what's inhumane. And I don't believe that that is inhumane. I do not believe that the love between two men is inhumane, or the love between two women, or the love between people who are gender non-conforming or gender non-binary, or people who are living the trans experience. I don't believe any of that is inhumane. I think that we were created for love and by love and in love, and that love should be our guiding force, however that manifests. And so I give space for all of that. So this is not the part at all that I think is inhumane. We'll see what happens later, that I say, wait a minute, let's talk about what's happening. Miss Nawita said, there goes my bestie. There goes my bestie. And so let's read it. So we have Jonathan and David, Jonathan who falls in love with David after hearing this conversation between Saul and David. Again, Saul is the king. David is one of the most fierce soldiers that Saul has ever encountered. He depends on David to win the campaigns of war. He depends on David to run the military. That's what, for lack of a better word, I don't know what they called it back then, but they were soldiers. They would go to war. So that's what we call the military in this present day. And so David was in charge. He was the leader. He was the chief of the military, and he was becoming known. He had already burst onto the scene with his fight against Goliath. So you know the story of David and Goliath, where you have this young boy who is a shepherd, and he was a member of a family that had lots of sons, and he was the youngest of all of those sons. And the younger sons came against this, had the opportunity to oppose this huge giant named Goliath, and they would not step up to the plate. But David was like, don't you serve a God that'll give you victory? Like, I'm not understanding. I'll go fight Goliath. I ain't got no problem with it. I'm going to take my slingshot and my rocks, because they tried to put him on the heavy armor. They tried to give him, they tried to make him a soldier in that moment, but that didn't work because he was wearing somebody else's clothes. He was trying to live into somebody else's gifts, and he could not do that. He had to be who he is. He had to stand firm in his own talents, and he had to be confident in his own self in order to get the victory for himself that ended up being something that was beneficial to everyone, and something that God, of course, was pleased with based on the words that we find in the Bible. And so David fights Goliath and wins, chops off his head, and comes back and like, what? What? And so now we have David with gaining this notoriety. Like now people know him. This is that young man. He is this shepherd boy who slaughtered this giant and felt nothing about it. He didn't think twice about it because he believed that he served a true and living God that would be with him no matter where he goes. And so now David is on the scene and he's now a soldier, and he brings back this good report to Saul, and Saul does not want him to leave. Saul does not want him to go back to his family. He does not want him to go back to being a shepherd boy. He wants him to fight in his army. And so now you've got David and Jonathan and Saul. They're all living together because they are creating a new relationship. One is professional, one is personal, but this is what's happening at the beginning of chapter 18. And as Saul continues to put his faith and his trust in David as a soldier, as a leader of the army, David keeps winning. And so did you all watch The Woman King? How many of you all saw The Woman King? I know Miss Norita saw The Woman King. But in The Woman King, Viola Davis's character, she is the Woman King. She goes out to fight for who actually is her daughter. She goes out to capture her daughter, but the overarching mission is to make sure that her people are not, that they don't fall prey to another tribe that's in the area, because they want to make sure that they are, Viola Davis's tribe wants to make sure that they remain in control of their resources, remain in control of their territory, remain in control of their land and their lives. And so they're fighting against this other tribe for their land and their lives. And what we come to learn about Viola Davis's tribe is that they were enslavers. Like they actually participated in the slave trade. And Viola Davis was like, this is not who we are called to be. And so she was fighting to make sure that they reclaimed the people who had been captured and enslaved. Let's reclaim our people, and let's fight for a new way of living that does not include us participating in the enslavement of other humans. Like, we're not going to do that. Let's find another way. So they found the palm oil. Like there's a whole new way that they can live, but they got to fight for this. Like, people have to die in order for them to have this right to control their lives and have the resources that they need to sustain the people in their tribe. And so she goes out to fight. And when she comes back, the people are there to greet her. The people are there with their calls. The people are there with their dances. Everybody is excited. It is a community affair because the king, the woman king, she hasn't been named yet, but she will be. The woman king has arrived and they were successful. They are yet still alive. And her daughter, who they went to reclaim, she is among them. And so everybody is celebrating. It is a beautiful moment. And that's when the king stands up and declares that she is the woman king. It is that same sentiment that happens in the Bible every time that David goes out to war. When he returns, the women greet him. The women want to give praise and honor and respect to the fact that they have come back alive, the fact that they have been successful, the fact that they are back amongst them as members of their community. It is a joyful occasion, and they begin to sing songs and dance. And as they are singing this song, as they are dancing, they make this statement. They say, Saul has killed thousands, but David has killed tens of thousands. And they just keep dancing and singing. But Saul heard them sing that phrase. Wait a minute. Saul has killed thousands, but David has killed tens of thousands. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. What is happening right now? And so Saul begins to, what we say, feel some kind of way, because they're giving more credence to David. They're saying David, in essence, he feels like they're saying David is better than him. So what he hears in this statement, in this song, is not a celebration of the community. It's not a celebration for the military men. It's not a celebration for success in war. What he hears is a comparison, and he's on the losing end. And at the moment that he hears these women singing more praise to David than he believes they are singing to him, he declares right now that David is his enemy. He got to get rid of David because now he's jealous. He thinks that David is going to take his position. He thinks that people are going to love David more than they love him. He thinks that David is now going to be the king. He's going to take his place. He's going to replace him. And so he wants to go to war. Not he wants to. He goes to war against David. And he's trying to figure out how to trap David. It's kind of like in the New Testament when people, when they were about to crucify Jesus, like let's think about leading up to the crucifixion. Those of us who know some of the stories, you hear the Pharisees and the Sadducees asking all these questions, and the Bible will tell you they're trying to trap him. They're trying to trick him. They're trying to get him to answer in the wrong way because they want to say, see there, see there. So all of these things are little bitty ways of what we would call microaggressions, like little ways to eat at the essence of who Jesus is so that he will begin to second guess himself. But they picked the right one with Jesus. Jesus knew full well who he was, and he wasn't worried about them at all. In fact, he would take the opportunity, turn it around, and name what's happening in them. And so what's happened, we can name what's happening in in Saul. You are jealous. And with jealousy, an accompanying emotion is anger. So Saul is jealous because he's insecure. He's worried about how other people are viewing him. And he decides he's got to get rid of David. And he's trying to look for any way that he can do that. He's trying to trap him. He's trying to kill him. He shoots arrows at him, all of these things to try to get David to die. None of those things work. And so he comes up with another plan. He's got two daughters. One of the daughters' name is, I want to say Merab. Her name is Merab. And he's like, I'm going to give you my daughter. You're going to become my son-in-law. And so this is, but in order to have my daughter, you're going to have to go out and fight the Philistines. And to fight the Philistines, what Saul is hoping is that David will fall to the Philistines. So he doesn't actually have to kill David. David will be killed in war. That's what he wants. And so that's where we're going to pick up the conversation when Saul offers his daughter to David in order for David to become the king's son-in-law. But he really is not expecting David to live long enough to be his son-in-law. He wants David to die. And that's one of the traps that he's setting. And so we're going to read that story, and we're going to keep on reading to continue to where Saul offers another one of his daughters to David for marriage. And that's where the inhumanity is going to come in. So hear these words as we begin to read them. 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 17 through 27. And I am going to read them. I'm going to put them up so that you can see them while I'm reading them. And then I will pause for a few minutes for us to just allow those words to wash over us, just kind of think about what we've heard, what we've read, and then we'll go from there. So here I don't know. I don't remember. I want to say this is the New International Version. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure it's on here, but the New International Version of the Bible, 1 Samuel chapter 18, verses 17 through 27. Here we go. Saul said to David, "Here is my older daughter, Merab. I'll give her to you to be your wife. Just serve me bravely and fight the Lord's battles." Saul said to himself, "I won't have to lift my hand to strike him down. The Philistines will do that." But David said to Saul, "Who am I? Is anyone in my whole family that important in Israel? Am I worthy to become the king's son-in-law?" The time came for Saul to give his daughter Merab to David. Instead, Saul gave her to Adriel from Maholah to be his wife. Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David. When they told Saul about it, he was pleased. "I'll give her to David to be his wife," Saul said to himself. "Then maybe she'll trap him, and maybe the Philistines will strike him down." So Saul said to David, "Now you have a second chance to become my son-in-law. Then Saul gave an order to his attendants. He said, "Speak to David in private. Tell him the king likes you. All his attendants love you. So become his son-in-law." Saul's attendants spoke those very words to David. But David said, "Do you think it's a small thing to become the king's son-in-law? I'm only a poor man. I'm not very well known." Saul's attendants told him what David had said. Saul said, "Tell David, here's the price the king wants for the bride. He wants you to kill 100 Philistines. Then bring back the skins you cut off when you circumcise them. That's how Saul will get even with his enemies." Saul hoped that the Philistines would strike David down. Saul's attendants also told David those things. Then David was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So before the wedding day, David and his men went out and killed 200 Philistines. They circumcised the Philistines. Then David brought back all the skins. They counted out the full number and gave them to the king. By doing that, David could become the king's son-in-law. So Saul gave David his daughter Michal to be his wife. And here is where I find the inhumanity that I want to talk about tonight. So remember, the first daughter, the older daughter, was offered to David, and David said, "I can't do this. I am not worthy of being the king's son-in-law because I am not important. My family is not important. My name is not important. I don't have what it takes to be the king's son-in-law. I'm not doing it." And so Saul, even though he was taken aback, he just accepted it and gave his daughter to someone else. But he's still looking for a way to trap David, to kill David, because he himself is insecure, because he himself has low self-esteem. So Saul's jealousy, his anger, his lack of self-esteem, his lack of confidence, that's what's driving him to kill David. Somebody who's simply being who he is. He is talented. He is gifted. He's graced as a soldier, and he's living his life. He is performing the tasks that have been assigned to his hand. And somebody over here decides, you are a threat to me. I consider you to be a threat. And so I'm now going to dedicate my life to snuffing out yours because you make me feel inadequate. Not because of anything that you've done. You just make me feel inadequate because I have not done the work on myself. I have not fortified my own personality. I have not walked in the truth of the enlightenment of who I am and what my gifts and my talents are. Instead, I want to be defined by other people. And when other people have said that you're better than me, now I'm mad at you. And so that's the situation David finds himself in. And he doesn't even realize that Saul is trying to kill him right now by offering him his daughters. And so he offers the first one, and David says no. And then Saul finds out that his second daughter is in love with David. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna see how I can work this. She's gonna be his trap. He's gonna be so caught up in her love for him that he is not going to focus, that he's gonna lose focus, he's gonna make bad decisions, and he's gonna end up getting himself killed at the hands of the Philistines. And I can wash my hands of it, says Saul, because I'm not the one who killed him. He was killed by the Philistines. So let me make sure that it happens. But first, let's think about what Saul is banking on. Saul is banking on love to discombobulate David. How many of us can really think back to a time when we call ourselves in so much in love that we did stupid? I'm talking about stupid stuff. Dumb, stupid, illogical, makes no sense at all, but we were doing it all in the name of love. And so Saul recognizes this tendency in humans to get so caught up in the emotion of love that you don't think straight. As a matter of fact, some people actually define love as the time in your life when you're not thinking straight. So that's interesting to me, because I'm like, so then what is marriage? Was you thinking straight when you got married, or were you not in love? Because if you were not in your right mind when you are in love, what causes you to get married? Because you get married because you are in love. So is marriage an illogical decision? I just don't think that people think about what they're really saying. And so here we have Saul say, I know how to get him. I'm going to let love do the trick. Love is going to knock him off his center, knock him off kilter. He's going to end up getting killed by these Philistines. In fact, I'm going to make it possible for him to get killed, because I am going to make it so worth his while to go and put himself in the face of danger with the Philistines that he's going to say yes. And that's what he does. He relaxes the dowry. So when we think about the Old Testament, one of the ways that we can find inhumanity in this story is to think about how women are perceived, how women are treated, how women are considered property. And so when a father has a daughter, he commodifies his daughter. He puts her to work. And the money that she makes, that money has to go back into his household. So he's making money off of her body. He's making money off the fact that she is woman, because you don't have the same standards for men. I'm not saying that men didn't work, but you don't have the same standards. And so these women, his daughter, she's making money for his household. So if she gets married and she's now living in her husband's household, then that father loses that income. He loses that capital. So because he is anticipating the loss of this money coming into the household, he assigns a dowry. He says, if you want to marry my daughter, you got to pay me. I need to recoup the loss that I'm about to feel when she's no longer in my house and she's no longer working and she's no longer adding to my coffers. And so I want to recoup that loss. So you got to pay me to marry my daughter. And if the daughter is of a family that is more noble, a family that's better known, a family that is of higher stature, then the dowry costs even more. So when Saul says to David, I'm going to give you another chance, a second chance to become my son-in-law, the first words out of David's mouth is, I'm poor. So it's not that I'm thinking he wasn't in love with her, because the Bible says she was in love with him. It never says he's in love with her. I'm thinking it's unrequited love, but really David recognizes that even if I wanted to marry her, I couldn't, because I don't have any money. I am poor and my family is not well known. I am not of the same stature as this woman. I can't do it. So don't even give it to me. I'm not worried about it. So Saul, because all he's concerned about is getting David killed, says, okay, it's okay, it's okay. You ain't even got to pay me. He tells the servants, go tell him he ain't got to pay me. What I want him to do, this is how I want to get paid. He doesn't have to give me any money. I want him to go and kill 100 Philistines. I want him to circumcise them and bring me their foreskins. Wait, what now? Is it just me, or does that sound like a strange request? So Saul, you are so insecure that you're trying to kill David, and in your attempt to kill David, you order the death of 100 other men, all because you are comparing your life to David, and you don't like the way it makes you feel to think that this man might one day take your place, and you're trying to secure your future. You're trying to maintain control, that you put his life in jeopardy and the lives of 100 other people, all because you insecure. That's inhumane. And it's because you believe that God is not with you. We can talk about that if we have time. And so he says to David, go and get me 100 foreskins. David, now listen to David. Now David told him no to the first wife because he ain't had no money. He's not of the right stature. He's not well known. His family's not well known. His father's not well known. So he can't do it. But now when I don't have to pay, now when all it's going to cost me is some foreskins, David is like, oh, I'll be your son-in-law now. All I got to do is go kill some people. I ain't got no money, but I got a weapon. I don't have a dowry, but I got a sword. So, sword, money, money, sword. I choose killing people, Alex, for $200. Like, what? And not only does David say, yes, I want to be your son-in-law so badly that I am going to go and kill, and not just kill 100 Philistines, I'm going to circumcise them, and then I'm going to bring their foreskins back to you. He says, I'm not going to kill 100, I'm going to kill 200, and I'm going to do it before the wedding day. He got to do it before the wedding day because remember, Saul is only doing this to get David killed. He doesn't expect David to be successful. He doesn't expect David to come back with these 100 foreskins. He doesn't expect to give David to his daughter. He doesn't expect David to become his son-in-law. He wants to kill David. He is putting David in harm's way intentionally so that he can die, so he can feel better about himself. That is inhumane. Inhumane on Saul's part. And then David says, oh, well, since I ain't got to pay no money, all I got to do is kill somebody. Okay. What? So now David is inhumane. And then he says he takes his inhumanity to another level because I'm not going to just kill 100. I'm going to kill 200. And that is exactly what David does. He goes and he kills 200 Philistines, circumcises 200 Philistines, gathers the foreskins of 200 Philistines and brings them back to Saul. Watch this, y'all. And counts them out. They sit, and according to what we just read, they don't get tired of. It's not like Saul says, oh, by the time he gets to 50, it's not like Saul says, okay, I believe you. By the time he gets to 100, it's not like Saul says, you don't have to keep going. It's not like by the time they get to 150, Saul says, I've had enough. I get it. They make the full count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 200, so that Saul can see that not only has David achieved his goal, he has exceeded his goal to make sure he can marry this daughter, Michal. And he really is not trying to marry Michal. He's trying to become the king's son-in-law. That title, that position is more important than the lives of 200 men. And the lives of those 200 men are only jeopardized by the insecurity of one man who's afraid that he's going to lose his power, afraid that he's going to lose control. And that fear of no longer being in a position to determine the livelihood, to determine the trajectory of somebody else's life, that fear causes him to put other people's lives on the line. That is inhumane. It's also inhumane for us to realize that Michal, the Bible says that Michal loved David. She's not in this for no status. She doesn't care that he's poor. She doesn't care that his father's name is unknown. She doesn't care that the community of Israel do not hold them in high esteem, as in like noble family, a noble family. She is in love with this man, and she wants to be with him. She wants to partner with him. She wants to give herself over to a journey of life, of living and loving together. That's what she wants to do. And her daddy takes her feelings and her emotions and says, I'm going to make a game out of this so I can get him killed, because I don't like the fact that he makes me feel insecure about myself. I don't like the way he makes me feel like other people think that he's better than I am. So I'm not thinking about you or your feelings or your emotions or even your life or your future. All I want is for you to get rid of this man because he threatens me. And all of that is in his head anyway. Because let me tell you what the women were really saying when they were singing the song. They were not comparing David to Saul. Not at all. In the tradition of their context, in their tradition in this time, when this was written, they used numbers to emphasis. They used numbers almost like, yeah, like hyperbole. Like the numbers that they use, that they would emphasize, they would just use it because they trying to get a point across. They're trying to send a message. And what they're saying is, we got Saul who's killed this many people. You add to that what David has done, and these two men who are leaders, who are fighters, who are soldiers, look how many lives they have killed because of their bravery, because of their courage, because of their fierceness, because they are bold. Look at Saul and look at David. We honor them, we respect them, we hold them both in high esteem. That's the song they were singing, but that's not what Saul heard. I think Reverend Allen, I don't know if she got the post from somewhere or somebody else posted on her account, but she posted on Facebook. It's an image, it's a graphic. And on the left-hand side, it says, it's a sheet of paper like this, and it says, "What I said." And then on the right-hand side is this many papers, and it says, "What I read into what you said." Now, all I said was this. Now, I don't know how you came up with this from me saying this. One sheet of paper. And that's what happens with Saul. He heard this song and he read into it, and it made him feel some kind of way, that he threatened David's life, the life of 100 Philistines that turned into the lives of 200 Philistines. And he disrespected the love that his daughter had for this man named David, all because he would not take the time to get to know himself better and to heal himself. And he's rooting this in the fact that, I'm going to come back to this, I mentioned it earlier, I want to come back to this, because he believes that God has left him. He's like, God don't love me no more. God has left me. God is now with David. God gonna make him the king. Like, he's already made all of this, is the story that he's telling himself in his head. But I began to think about that. God left him. God left him. God left him. And I'm like, who does God ever leave? Show me in the Bible where God says, I can't deal with you no more. You human. You make stupid decisions, so I don't love you anymore. You don't do all of the things that I want you to do, so I'm going to take my hand off you. You defy me. You don't do all of you. You're not who I envisioned you to be. And so I take my hands off of you. We cannot attribute that kind of behavior to God, especially if we say that God is omniscient. Omniscient meaning God is all knowing. If God is omniscient, that means that God already knew who we were, already knew how we were going to live, already knew every step we were going to take, already knew every move we were going to make before God even created us. God knew we weren't going to do everything right, and yet God still created us and still said we are good. Created us and called us good. And now Saul thinks that God would leave. We got, how many verses do we have? Deuteronomy 31, Joshua 1, where it says, God will never leave you nor forsake you. We sing songs about Emmanuel. Who is Emmanuel? That is the God who is with us. If we look at Psalm 139, verses 7 and 8, it talks about no matter where you go, if you ascend up to heaven, there God will be with you. The Bible goes on to declare you can make your bed in hell and still God is there. So for Saul to believe that God has left him, this is just some stuff he has made up in his head to try to give justification for his insecurity. He's trying to justify the fact that he needs to not only kill David, but also kill the lives of 100 Philistines that turned into the lives of 200 Philistines when we add into it David's inhumanity. So you got all this going on because Saul will not stop and say, let me think about this. That Saul will not seek counsel, that Saul will not go to therapy, that Saul will not surround himself with community and have a conversation. Y'all, what y'all think about this? Sometimes that's what we need to do. Get out of our own heads. Call somebody on the phone and say, can I come sit with you? I just want to, can we go out for a drink, for some coffee, for a cocktail, for some wine, for some juice, for some water? Can I just sit with you for a minute? I want to let you know what I'm thinking. Tell me what you hear. I'm feeling some kind of way, and I want to express it, because I just want to hear somebody else tell me what you think about what I'm feeling. Does it make sense to you? Let me just run this past you real quick. Tell me what you hear. Tell me how it makes you feel when I say it. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm on to something, or you think I'm tripping? And I believe that if Saul had just stopped for a moment and said, let me surround myself with people I trust, with people I respect, people I believe that are going to tell me the truth, they would have said to him, Saul, now you know good and well God don't lead nobody. You tripping. Let's figure out what this is really about, so that we can help Saul name for himself. Saul probably doesn't realize that he's operating out of jealousy, probably doesn't realize that he's operating out of insecurity. He probably doesn't realize that, because it's hard to name those things in yourself. It's easy to name them in somebody else's life, but it's hard to name them yourself. But when you surround yourself with community, with people that you trust, they will help you see you. They will help you recognize the error of your ways, or they will recognize that you are onto something, that you are right. The point is that you live it out in community. You take your concerns to community. You bear each other's burdens and say, help me understand this. Help me figure this out. Because I know that if somebody had heard Saul say God left him, said, no, Saul, that is not how God works. So to the person who believes that somebody who is LGBTQ, IAA, two-spirited plus, that God don't love them, then you're not surrounding yourself with the right community. For a person to believe that God loves Black people less than, or Asian people less than, or anybody who is non-white, God loves you less because you are not as superior because of your skin tone. You're not surrounding yourself with the right community. For people who believe that it is okay to give themselves over to capitalism to the point where you are forcing people to be homeless, you are forcing people to be hungry, you're forcing people to live in poverty, you have not yet surrounded yourself with the right community who will tell you God don't work like that. That's not how God enters into relationship with us. God is forever faithful to us, never leaves us, never forsakes us. No matter what decision we make, God says, I am here with you to help you work through it. There's no such thing as being out of God's presence, whether you acknowledge it or not. So let's not lie on God. Let's not use God as justification to threaten somebody else's livelihood because you feel some kind of way about yourself. Get some help. Have some conversation. Talk to some more people. Perhaps if Saul had done that, he would have found a different arrangement for David to make to get his daughter. I don't even know if they would have even gotten married. Do you have to get married? I don't even know. Maybe they would have even gotten married. Who knows? But this is a tragic, inhumane story that's based in one man's fear of being compared to another man and feeling like he's going to come up short. We don't have to compare ourselves to anybody. God loves each one of us the same. God does not see hierarchy. God does not have favoritism. God does not do any of those things. Not the God, who is the Spirit of the living God. Now, the God we interpret and that we use to legislate, that's a different God. I'm talking about God's self. The Spirit of the living God only comes along beside us to be in covenant relationship, to say, I love you, you are loved, you are mine, and I am yours. And we're going to walk this life together regardless of your situation and circumstances and your decisions. And I'm going to help you fight the people that's coming after you. So this is the God that we want to embody for people. Not a God of judgment, not a God who walks away, not a God who justifies anger and death and murder and slaughter and revenge. No, that's not the God we uphold. At least I hope it's not. Y'all have to think about it and talk about it and hit me up if you want to have some more conversation about it, because I'm here for it. I want to know, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? How are you responding? Yeah, I'm interested in that conversation. But that's all I got for tonight. T, you want to sign off? Gonna say bye? I don't know if they can see you. You don't have your light on. They can barely see you. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for the Good Fight. We will be right back here next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, from 7 to 8, to talk more about, I don't know. I don't know if we'll still be talking about inhumanity in the Bible. I really don't know. It just depends. But thank you so much. We really appreciate you for being in this space. Remember, we are one. Sawubona.